Hey everyone, exciting show for you today. It's a returning guest. We are bringing back Mr. George Pitts. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm good, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I had so much fun during our first conversation. It feels like 3 months ago, maybe even four, that I knew I had to reach out to you again and just check in with you, George, and see what's going on in your neck of the woods. How are things going?
It's going good. Things have really been busy as far as business goes, and of course, there's been a lot to watch. I mean, I like to consider myself an amateur economist, so I love to look at the economy, look at the numbers, and I'm sure and anybody else listening to this, it's been a pretty interesting last 6 to 8 weeks so far. So it's been interesting to see the trends and stuff like that. So I've been staying busy.
Yeah, I love what you're doing on Instagram. I need some coaching and some help there because that's my one platform where one rental at a time is not taking off. But let's talk about the economy because I think there's a lot of things that I'll say novice or maybe I don't inexperienced maybe the wrong word, but just people who didn't really experience '08. They're kind of frankly they're guessing and maybe even worse hoping that 2020 is going to be a mirror image of 2008. And I got to tell you, it's not. And there's lots of reasons for it. So I'm curious if that's what you're seeing. What are you hearing from people out there?
So, I'm seeing a lot of people kind of talk about, oh, well, this is what we're expecting. This is what we're thinking is going to happen. And, houses are going to be $1,000 like they were in 2008. And, you know, from what I'm noticing, mortgage companies are actually putting in things to prevent that.
Yeah.
As far as allowing people to put the mortgages at their payments at the end of their note. People that are actually getting other opportunities to reduce their income or reduce their payments to prevent them from losing their homes.
Oh yeah.
So, one thing that I've told people before, the banks really aren't in the market to sell houses. They don't want to sell houses. They don't want to sell cars. They want to sell loans.
Yeah.
And so they're going to do whatever they can to get people to keep paying a mortgage for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, or however. Regardless of it, they have to reduce some things right now. And then when a person catches back up, because a lot can happen in 30 years,
Yeah.
they're going to do that. But I don't think, and I'll be the first to say, earlier before some of these things went into place, I kind of saw it trending that way until I saw the bank saying, no, we're going to step in. And now the Federal Reserve has been buying, what is it, $80 billion a month in bonds and stuff, which is insane.
Yeah.
When you think about it. But there's a lot of things in place to prevent that from happening.
Yeah. Having experienced the last crisis, I'll call it the 2006 or the 2008 crisis versus the 2020 crisis. They're almost the mirror image. Mm-hmm. So if you're sitting here in 2020 with a little scratch, a little paper put away, and you're hoping you're going to get your house 50% off, I'm here to tell you that in most markets, it's not going to happen. And you're going to be spectacularly disappointed. There are some markets that are going to have pain, and it's the big vertical cities. It's New York, it's San Francisco, might be Chicago, might be Seattle. But it's the very verticalized cities because everybody remembers the last crisis. And this crisis, the answer is space is good because now where you live becomes not only where you live, it's where you teach your kids, right? It's where you have daycare. It's where you work from. It's your gym. It's your entertainment, right? All of these things inside of a 900 to 1,100 square foot apartment is very different than a 900 or 1,100 square foot house where you have a front, backyard, probably a garage. So it's just not going to happen. And you are so right when you talk about the banks. The banks are acting remarkably different. I went through the last crisis, and the last crisis, the answer was when you lost a job, you would call your bank and ask for help. And your bank would say, essentially, we can't help you until you're 90 days late. So guess what people did? They were 90 days late, right? That's what the bank said, which was nuts. And then the banks, then they did that and they did that over and over. And then really what happened is that started to flood the market. Then people, individuals like you and I started saying, well, I'm just going to strategically default because my house is worth $100,000 less than I paid. I'm going to walk away. I can rent something down the street, save a bunch of money. and bought bingo boom, everything's good. So if you were lucky enough to be active in 2010, you probably got some incredible purchases done because the banks made a mistake in '08, and it just took time to unravel. What happened in 2020 is the banks came out immediately and said, we're going to do forbearance, which I did a video on like 3 weeks later when I read the details going, ooh, that's going to hurt because not many people can cut a check once the forbearance period is over for the difference. And I'm like, oh, things are going to go on sale, right? I can buy something. You know, they're getting smarter. Now they've said, you know what? That's kind of stupid. What we're going to do now is we're going to give you a year of forbearance, up to a year of forbearance. And oh, by the way, whatever you owe, we're going to stick it as a 0% interest second. We're going to collect no payments until the first is paid off or you sell or refi the house. So the bank's like, we are really going to create an air pocket for homeowners, which is unheard of. I've been doing this 20 years, never heard of something like that. So there are tons of people who will have a gap in income that will be able to survive this without having to sell their home. Now, there will be a small percentage, and now we can argue, is it 10%, is it 25%, that will be structurally impacted by this, and then their job is gone and they have to move. So they are truly in pain. But that's, you know, that's going to be a very small blip compared to what it could have been. So I actually did a video this morning because I don't know if in your market it's like this, George, but active listings are down 30% from what they were last year. And last year was a down year. Yep. And pendings in my market, I just got the number yesterday. This is fresh data. The first 2 weeks of June, pendings are up 47.5%. In a market with listings down. So we went from like 8 weeks of inventory to 3 weeks of inventory. There is no chance in hell prices below the median are going to fall. Prices in most metros are going to rise in 2020. And George, I would not have said that 5 weeks ago. I just wouldn't have said it.
I didn't say it 5 weeks ago.
and now there's no opportunity. And again, you can argue, how can prices go up in double-digit unemployment? Well, a disproportionate amount of the folks that are unemployed aren't homeowners; they're renters. So you know, let's start looking at that real picture. And as long as you're below the jumbo limit, right, wherever the jumbo loan limit is for your market, that inventory is flying off the shelf. Yeah. I mean, I had a friend who just listed something for $199, which was just a nothing house. It was bid on by 3 people up to $215.
Wow.
That's almost 11% spike or 12% spike over what was already full value, right?
Yeah.
There's no chance in most markets that prices go down. So if you're waiting on the sidelines going like this, not in 2020. Wow. Yeah, maybe in 21, right, when you get that little air pocket of forbearance pain.
Right.
But not this year. I mean, that's what I'm seeing. I don't know about you.
Well, you know, like I said, about 5 weeks ago, I had a totally different tune than I do now. And one of the reasons for that is because, you know, what we were seeing then, the trend changed dramatically. And like you said, you're absolutely right. Most of the people that you would think, well, you know, you got these people on unemployment, people getting stimulus checks. Yeah, but either they're already renters or they're already in houses. And you're only going to have those people that are going to feel it as far as that 10 to 20% that we could argue what it would be, who are probably already in trouble before this started.
Yeah.
So they were already 90 days past due, 120 days past due. And now you're starting to see those people take advantage of the forbearance, which is going to take them, by the time the forbearance is over, they might be 6 or 8 months past due.
Exactly.
And then they still don't have the money because, you know, there's going to be some people that aren't going to be able to write a check for all those things. Yeah. And I'm sure they'll work something out there. But the problem that I can see is that you've got so many people that are dependent on this unemployment because it's paying them so much more.
Yeah.
That when that finally does come to a close, and it will, I know everybody keeps talking about, oh, is there going to be a second stimulus? Are they going to extend it? At some point, they can't keep cutting checks and they can't keep adding money to checks.
Yeah.
So at some point, you're going to have to let the economy it's going to do what it has to do. And so those individuals that are thinking that extra $600 a week is just going to keep coming and it stops.
Yeah.
But their lifestyle is adjusted because, here where I live, I was talking to someone else and they said that they've seen a 25% increase in volume on people buying cars. and they're
Wow.
using their unemployment as the deciding factor. So
Wow.
you got all these people buying cars, and it's like they're signing these 60-month, 72-month, and 84-month terms when they've got less than 3 months left on their unemployment. So it's like you're getting these $600, $700, $800 car payments, but then when that extra $600 a week is gone, then what? Because yeah, you might still get unemployment, but you're not going to get the bonus. So I think you're going to see a different type of collapse, but it's not going to be in real estate.
Yeah, the only thing at this point is the 600 is going to end. Does it end in July? It'll end sometime this year.
It has to.
Yeah, it just has to. And of course, we're talking about the bonus unemployment from the Fed, not the state. The state's going to, it'll run for whatever it runs. But that is amazing that you're seeing the rise in cars. And if I remember your story correctly, your at least real estate investing journey started when you bought a car and gave it back the next day. Do I remember that right?
The 2013 Dodge Charger Silver XR2 with leather seats. I can tell you everything about it because it was my dream car at the time.
Yeah, I remember.
Everything. Alloy rims, 18-inch chrome wheels that had the balance bar in the back, Alpine speakers. I mean, everything that I wanted.
Tricked out.
And I paid $27,000 for that car.
Yeah.
And I had it for about 18 hours. And, my sister called me and said, "Hey, you got to come here. You got to look at this." And there was so it was a duplex, and they took the wall out and they didn't finish it. So It was a big 4-bedroom home.
Okay.
And it was going for $30,000.
There you go.
So it was only $3,000 more than me. So I had to take the car back. I had to actually take a $1,500 loss because they charged me. They wouldn't give me a refund on the paperwork, which was $1,000 paperwork, which I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then there was a $500 re-lot fee, basically putting it back on the lot, putting it in the system. Yeah. So I lost $1,500. But like I said on my post, that house generates over $10,000 a year now.
Yeah.
In revenue on top of the other property.
So how do we help other people see that? Because it's assets over liabilities. It's long-term versus short-term. I mean, there's so much in that one little story that is very personal to you. I mean, how do we help people see that? Because they're making, I mean, I don't know all of them, but let's just say many of them are making stupid financial decisions.
Very. I'll put it to you this way. One of the properties that we bought was $50,000. Mm-hmm. And the payments was around $380 something a month for 30 years, right? Yeah. And what I do is I like to pace it, so I'll have the cash to do it, but instead of tying my cash up in the property, I'll take a loan out, let it get rented for a few years, and I'll pay it off. But it's a loan to where $380, $400, I can afford that. Right. So what you got to do is think, okay, you got to fall in love. First of all, you got to fall back in love with the cars, with the cars that you have.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But the same thing, you just got to look at, okay, how much am I paying for this car? $400. The average car payment right now is $478 a month in the United States. $478. And to me, that's because I don't even have a property that high.
Wow.
So I think what people have to understand is that I think there's a lot of people that don't realize that they can actually buy properties like this, for this cost. And for one of the reasons is because everybody thinks, well, George, I live in New York, I live in California, I live in Washington. Well, you don't have to buy there. You know, you can go and buy in Missouri, you can buy in Arkansas, you can buy in Oklahoma, Kansas, all these other places, right? You can hire a property management company and they can manage it for you.
Yeah.
Now you can actually even close from a title company in your state, and it can all be done. So you don't even have to go there. But the thing is that I think people have to see that there's opportunities available to them that they're in position to take, that they're passing up because of lack of knowledge or, lack of the imposter syndrome. I don't think I can do it. I don't know what this is for me, or out of fear that what if this actually does work, or what if it doesn't work, or what if it doesn't go through? So I think a person has to get that in their mind, because listen, someone's always going to need a place to live.
Yeah.
But not everybody's going to, want a car. And the thing is, that car that I bought, what is it, 6 years ago, I wouldn't pay that much for that car now.
Smart.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But that house that I bought, I would pay that much for that house, and I would probably pay more for it now.
Absolutely.
See the difference? So I think people have got to understand that there are opportunities that you as individuals listening to this are in position to take. You've just got to, want to take them, and not just like the idea of taking them. Because you can talk to, I think, 6 out of 10 people, And if you talk about real estate or properties and they don't have properties, 6 out of 10 of them are going to say, oh, I'd love to get into rentals. Oh, I'd love
Yeah.
to get into properties. But they don't realize, well, you can, and you're in position to do it, but they just,
Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is I believe this crisis, unlike the Great Recession, unlike the dot-com craze, which are two events in my adult life that that impacted me at least a little bit. I believe this crisis, and we're not done with it. It's got more time to go, but it's going to be long enough that I believe there will be a structural change in consumer behavior. Whether it's saving more, whether it's maybe buying less stuff to flaunt or flex. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on what might be, changes in consumer behavior? Because on my channel, all I track is the consumer. Why? Because they're my competitor when I want to buy stuff. And then I track cost of capital. Cost of capital is easy. It's going to be cheap for a long time. So I'm trying to figure out, what does the consumer look like, in 2021 or 22 when we have 8 to 11% unemployment still. And, I'm just curious, what do you see when you kind of look in your fuzzy crystal ball?
So last week I attended the Federal Reserve's conference call that was live, and Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, spoke. And one thing that he said that stuck out to me like a sore thumb was when they initially put the rates down to near 0%, that they said that they would keep them there until they felt confident the economy could stand on its own. He made an announcement that based on the data, and guys, listen, if anybody has data on what's going to happen, it's the Federal Reserve.
No joke.
So he said, based on the data that they have, they are going to keep the rates until 2022.
Yeah.
So that tells me, based off of his earlier statement, that they don't see the economy bouncing back to where it's sustainable until 2022.
Yeah.
So because of that, one of the things that he said, I listened to the whole thing and I even watched it again.
Wow.
One thing that he said that was really, really interesting was that many people will have to shift what they know, meaning that you have some people that have been in the construction field for 20 years. And most of the time, if they get let go from a company because of their company's not performing well, they just leave there and they go find another construction job.
Right.
But what's going to happen is that those people aren't going to find those jobs anymore. So you're going to have senior level people that work in the oil field and blue collar jobs that are going to be finding and looking for other entry level jobs into other types of careers. You might have someone in the oil field that might have to go into healthcare. You might have someone in the warehouse or distribution industry that's going to have to go into the rest, into the food and beverage industry. So you're going to have a lot of people that it's going to be very unsettling that they're going to have to go from what they know to make ends meet to go and do something else. And I also think as far as the consumer spending habits are going to go, it's actually already happening. Many credit card companies have reduced people's credit limits based on their performances. There's people right now that were carrying 70% credit limits. For instance, if they had a $1,000 credit limit, some of these companies have already dropped people down to 500.
Wow.
So what's happened is that now you got a person that had a $700 balance on a $1,000 limit. They have a $500 limit with a $700 balance. So now your credit score is dropping because you're at 120% credit utilization now instead of 70. And you can't go out and spend anymore because they see, okay, unemployment's coming to an end. There's a lot of furloughs happening. There's a lot of this. They're not going to be able to pay this money back. So they're going out strategically and they are reducing credit limits based on people's spending patterns. So what you're going to see is a lot more people because they don't have that credit card, because people look at credit cards. Some people look at credit cards as an extension of their income.
Yeah.
So if they want something, they just use the credit card.
Yeah, swipe.
So now that they can't use that, you're going to have people strategically actually doing something they should have did last year or even 10 years ago, which is create a budget. Or they're going to be like, do I really want these shoes? Or I don't know if, I got rode up at work this week. Maybe I should save this money.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to start to see sales go down, which we're already starting to see. I mean, 24-hour fitness, a lot of people cancel their gym memberships. 24-hour fitness, announced that they're filing bankruptcy and they're closing 100 gyms. You also saw that Chuck E. Cheese is talking about closing, they're filing bankruptcy and they're talking about closing all of their stores.
Yeah.
So I think you're already starting to see that consumer spending habits adjust a little bit. And we could blame it on the pandemic, which that's a good chunk of it. But I think that even after this, you're going to see people that are going to have to think twice before they actually purchase something, because one, they don't have the credit card as an anchor, and two, they're going to be like, okay, I have $300 left for 2 more weeks, but I may not have a job in 2 more weeks, because I think you're going to see a lot of that happening. So I think you're going to see consumer spending reduce greatly, which is why I believe the GDP is going to decrease a little bit, probably about 5 or 6%. And then I think it's going to really increase in 2021, late 2021, early 2022. And you're going to see everything going up, including rental prices. So that's what I see based on what I've been hearing and watching and reading.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. And I just want to tie it back to what we were talking about cars before, because it's weird, because you can actually go get a car today, 0% interest, nothing down.
Yeah.
Right. So you can fool yourself into saying, oh, I didn't take anything out of my account, and I got this new shiny toy, blah, 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 blah. And oh, by the way, that shiny toy is already depreciated, whatever it is, 10,
20%.
Yeah. Just by driving it off the lot. Right.
Yep.
So folks, we need to save, right? Again, crisis is a great time to learn. It's a mother of I don't know, learning experiences. And what I hope people do is they have a greater appreciation for an emergency reserve.
Yes.
Right. A lot of people came into this with none, which is unfortunate. And now they've seen the need for one. Others came into it with what they thought was an emergency fund, but quickly realized wasn't enough. So I'm hoping savings change. We saw the savings rate change quite substantially in March, not as much in April. I'm just hoping that continues forward. And if it does, realize that comes from something. That comes from consumption, right? Right. We are going to have a record fall in GDP in Q2. It could be between 40 and 50% because we are a consumer-based economy.
Yes.
Most of that is the self-imposed shutdown. Got it. Q3, this is going to be fun to talk about, George. Q3, I can promise you, we are going to have a record GDP increase. I can promise you. It is going to be, statistically speaking, the largest growth ever reported. And it's going to be bogus because statistics lie, right? For example, let's just say we're at 100 in Q4. We go down 50% we're at 100 in Q1. Q2, we go down 50%. So now GDP is 50.
Yeah.
Q3, we could see GDP go up 30%. Guess what? That's 65, right? That's just how numbers work, right? And then, oh, by the way, Q4 can go up 20%. Again, oh my God, we go from 65 to 78. We are still way below 100. We will not see 2019's GDP until 2022 or 23 at the earliest.
Right.
Do you agree?
I think it's about 3. Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah, and again, folks, this is important because when our GDP is not up, jobs aren't there, right? Jobs are not going to magically go from 13.3% to 3.5% overnight.
Right.
It's going to be sticky, right? Some of it will absolutely bounce back. We could, in theory, be under 10% next month because New York and California are finally opening up. You could statistically be there. I do not think you'll be there. I think it'll be around 11, but it wouldn't shock me if we broke, we got to 9%, which, oh, by the way, was the peak of the Great Recession, was 9.9, right? If we go back to 2008. But it is going to be sticky on the way down. That last 6% is going to be hard. Exactly what you said, Jerome Powell, because there's structural unemployment. If you were trained up in area X, Y, and Z, and now you need to go A, B, and Z, or A, B, and C, your income's going to go down because you're not the expert. You probably have to move, right? Because your job in oil used to be in Texas, and now you got to go to wherever. I mean, it's unfortunately going to be the pain on this one is going to last a lot longer than 9/11. 9/11 was painful for 3 or 4 weeks. The Great Recession was painful, really painful for 18 months. This one, we could be feeling this one for a couple of years, I think.
Yeah, I think we're looking at about 24 to 28 months minimum.
Yeah.
And the only reason I feel that is because you have a lot of exactly what you just said. You have a lot of fictitious activity. Yeah. The best way for someone to get a preview of what you just said is pull the chart of the Dow Jones from June 1st to now, which would be June 15th.
Yeah.
And watch how it was down. Then all of a sudden it shot up. Everybody, we're recovering. Hey! Everything went up. I mean, Chesapeake, a company here, they filed bankruptcy. They just did a reverse split a few weeks ago. And the day that everything shot up and everything was green, you're talking about a company in bankruptcy that is potentially talking about turning it over to the creditors.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is. Or the bankruptcy trustee. They were the only stock that day of all the stocks out there that went up over 210%
Just
in a matter of
nuts.
an hour.
Just not. And Hertz. How about Hertz? Hertz, same thing. Bankrupt company.
70%.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, they go to the bankruptcy judge on Friday and go, "Hey, I want to raise $1 billion because these idiots want to buy my stock."
Want to buy my stock? Yeah.
The bankruptcy. And oh, by the way, this perspective says you're going to lose your money. This is worthless stock.
Oh.
But they're selling it today.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are people doing?
And the bankruptcy judge is like, well, sure, because
why
that's
not?
going to give you more money
To pay off the
more of your
creditors.
debts off, and that's going to help us do what you came here for. So it's great. Why not? If they want to buy, you put everything out in the news. There's nothing illegal about you selling them something that has no value.
Yeah.
When you put everything in the news showing it has no value.
Yeah.
But you got people that are like, everything is back. The industry's back. The airlines are back. The cruise lines are back. Everybody thinks everything is back. And what's going to happen is that when the, curtain actually, goes up, you're going to say, oh, wait a minute. Someone was pulling the strings back here the whole time.
Yeah.
This wasn't even real.
Yeah. Well, we got to be
just like, it's going to be just like the Wizard of Oz. You're going to wake up. It was all just a dream.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I just read right before I hit record on this session was the Fed, again, our friend Jerome Powell, is now going to buy individual corporate debt, just announced today.
And that's what makes me fearful, because what happens is now you're turning the Federal Reserve into a creditor for corporations.
Well, that is absolutely a fear, but what really scares me is now the Fed is picking winners and losers.
Yes.
And where's the free market in all of that?
And here's the deal with the Fed. The Fed can say, okay, our economy is built on, how we perform.
Mm-hmm.
So the Dow Jones makes up the 30, companies that, lead their industries. So if the Fed is buying all this stuff and they say, okay, how can we make these companies more profitable? Well, for long-term traders, we do fundamental analysis. So we break down the income statement, the cash flow statement, the balance sheets, what they're buying, how much debt they're paying off. If their debt payments become a lot cheaper on paper because the Federal Reserve says, okay, instead of paying $20 million, we're going to let you pay $5 million a month for the next 3 years. So it looks like on the papers that, okay, they dropped their debt by 70 or their payments by 75%. So everything looks green for quarters after quarter after quarter. And it shows that they're keeping more of their revenue more than their outgoing. Yeah. So then you see these companies, and all of a sudden their prices go up because they look more valuable on paper. And all of a sudden you've got people buying these companies. And then when things change or they readjust, you got all these people that have these companies that really have paper value and not actually real value.
And again, this is what's going to happen. I can promise you this. There will be some people out there that they are spending all of their time and energy, and it's probably the big hedge funds that are hiring private investigators and all this other nonsense.
Yes.
They're going to find out what company the Fed is buying, and they're going to front run it because the Fed is going to be buying companies and giving remarkably cheap debt.
Yes.
Right. Let's just be clear. If the Fed, I'm not saying they do, but if the Fed wanted to save Hertz, they could. They could issue them $1 trillion at 0% or whatever. Boom, Hertz is fine.
And we've seen this happen before. Chrysler, GM, just to name a few.
Just name
Citibank, just to name a few. Lehman Brothers. I mean, this isn't an uncommon, unusual thing.
But it rubs me so the wrong way because they're picking winners and losers. And some people are going to do great in this, and they'll be stronger for it, right? If you can get cheap debt from the Fed, there's no cheap. They got the fucking printing press at home, right? They can make as much, they can print some more.
Yes.
Cheap debt.
Yep.
So, and then they're not going to help others. And I don't understand the rules, and I haven't read anything that says who they're going to. I mean, there's got to. When I saw that before I hit record, I'm like, oh my God, things are about to get wonky. Stay away, because I'm not in the know. I got nobody in the Fed that's going to whisper in my ear, hey, we're going to buy United, or we're going to buy Delta, or we're going to buy Southwest, or we're going to buy Carnival Cruise Line, or whoever. Man, this stock market is about to get very volatile, just like we've seen the last 2 days, right? The market was down 700 to start. I did a video this morning saying, watch out, people are front running. So they're shorting today by 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 Eastern. I expect the stocks to be flat, and they were almost flat.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening.
Yeah.
These day traders at Robinhood are being played with, and it's unfortunate.
That's why you can't get into something you don't understand.
Yeah.
And it goes back to knowledge. You know, one rental at a time book. Don't just go and buy a house and try to rent it out. Go read a book and find out about it. It's not that simple. Trust me, guys. Yeah. It's not. You know, everybody has this idea of, I want to go buy a property real cheap and then I'm just going to put a rent sign in front of it. No, there's so much that goes into it. How much is that area even getting for rent? Okay. Yeah. Is it a good area? What are the schools like? Because, you know, if you don't want to send your kids there, the type of renter you want that is willing to send their kids there may not be the renter that you want, you know? So you got to, you know, people, they don't think, you know, that's why we've got to buy books. We got to watch the YouTube videos. We have to listen and learn from individuals. I have Michael Zuger's book. So I can learn stuff even, and people might say, well, you know, people see me in courses and webinars all the time. They're like, you teach this stuff. Why are you here? Because there's something more I can learn. Yeah. You know, there's people that won't even take the first step to learn the first thing. I feel that I can learn throughout the process. Yeah. So, you know, we've got to get more into you know, knowledge pays the best interest. At the end of the day, that's what's going to pay dividends. Knowledge pays the best interest. I don't know that I've heard that before. That I would love to say that I came up with that, but my good friend Radiko Roberts came up with that, and you know it pays the best interest. The thing is that knowledge that you get now will protect you to help you keep money and make more money years from now, to where when people are actually finally catching up, you're protected. Just like these Robinhood traders, they're getting, you know, and not everybody trading on Robinhood is, you know. No, it's just. But for the people that are just downloading Robinhood and going and buying a share of Hertz or going to buy a share of Chesapeake or any other company because they heard about it. Yeah. They're getting toyed with right now. And they're going to sell their shares to you at the highest possible price. And then once they pull the rug from out of you, you're going to be stuck with shares about 50% of what the value is that you paid. And let's just be clear. I'm telling you this is happening, and it happened to me. It just happened to be in the year 1999 or 2000. If you haven't seen the .com crash, go look it up. Go look up Webvan, Pets.com, and many, many more. They were worth hundreds of dollars, and then out of nowhere, they were worth nothing because they had no business model. Mark Cuban came out, I think it was on Thursday or Friday of last week, and said everything he's been seeing reminds him exactly, almost to the day, of what the .com boom was like. It's so, he's the one that sold his company right before it and made billions of dollars. Yeah, so. News, broadcast.com. No, yeah, broadcast.com, yeah. Yeah, it made him a billionaire. Talk about selling at the peak. He nailed the peak. Yeah, yeah. And the rest is history. And the rest is history. So, hey, George, how can people follow you? I love what you're doing. I follow you on Instagram, but how can people follow you, get a part of your universe? So you can follow me on all social media platforms at Mr. George Pitts. That's Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Periscope, Twitter, you name it. That's where I'm at. Soon to be YouTube. You can also visit my website, mrgeorgepitts.com. But I'm most active on Instagram, and you know, definitely you find a lot of updates on my website as well. Very cool, man. Well, do me a favor, stay in touch. We'll do another one in a couple of weeks, or maybe another. Yeah, and I got to bring you on the show. Anytime, man. I'm always there for you. Thank you, buddy. Absolutely.